Meantime, I'll tell you exactly what's been going on with that. Here's the questions. Is heading necessary? Should heading be banned? Can you imagine football without heading? I'll tell you that the research and science seems clear. Heading affects the brain. Heading can lead to dementia. That's what scientists are telling us. This is non-negotiable anymore. They are saying this is the reality. The old research showed that former pros were 3.5 times more likely to die with dementia than the general public. But the authorities wanted a clearer link to be established. It looks like that link has now been established because goalkeepers' data is the same as the general public.
Right.
That tells you, and defenders are more likely to die with dementia than, say, strikers. But certainly goalkeepers, there's no real link to be made. So, according to this guy, Dr. Willie Stewart, neuropathologist, leading neuropathologist in this field, football, he says, should come with a health warning. And we know that last week or 10 days or so ago, there was a new guidance came in, and in training, professional players are only allowed to execute higher force headers 10 times in a week, defined as headers. That's headers from a pass of more than 35 metres.
Corner.
From crosses, corners, and free kicks as well. So that's in training. They're only allowed to execute 10
a week.
Higher force headers per week. That's professionals.
Right. If we take heading out of the game, then it is no longer the game that we all know and the game that we all love. Elite sport, professional sport is a conscious decision you make. No one has got your arm up your back, forcing you to do anything that you don't wish to do. It's a choice that you make if you're good enough, if you're lucky enough to go into it. My own dad passed away last year with dementia, aged nearly 90. Was a professional footballer for 15 years. I well know this subject and the impact on families and the impact on individuals at the end of your life, towards the end of your life, from potentially repetitive use of heading the ball. My dad was a defender aide in the late 40s, right through the 50s, when that ball weighed a ton, like a medicine ball.
Especially when it was raining.
Mate, it was lit. I mean, he told me about heading the lace, catching the laces on the side of your face, when it's on a soaking wet day, and the impact of that was serious. There's no question about it. But I don't want to see heading taken out of our game, and I don't think our sport can exist without it. I think there are versions of it you can have. You can have 5-a-side, you can have 7-a-side. You can of course do that, but that's not. The communities up and down the country who love their football clubs, who are employed by their football clubs, who need their football clubs. Those clubs, I don't think, would exist if we took that out of the game, because it becomes a different sport, Aid.
Well, so the 11-a-side full-on professional game, and that has to stay the same. And you're speaking from close personal experience of this issue.
And do you know what? And I'm being absolutely honest here. I'm 58 years of age now. If I all of a sudden and follow in down the same road, a similar road that my dad went down, and we could start to see things happening 15 years before he passed away. If that starts to happen to me, then obviously I'm going to have to live with that, deal with that, work with that at that particular time, accept that. But would I, if I had the opportunity to go and do it all again, right? Yes, I would. Yes, I would. I've got 2 grandsons. Would I stop them from being professional footballers? No, I would not. And I don't think anybody who enters elite sport and goes into the top of it and wants to play sport for a living, Aid, I don't think anyone has the right to stop someone doing what they love and what they want to do. They know the dangers.
I get that, but there are legal consequences. We can get into the details of how that might affect things a little bit later on. But let me ask you a question. How old are your grandkids?
How old are my grandkids? 5 and 1.
Okay, so if, God forbid, please, nothing happened to you, but just say you did start losing it a little bit and it was linked to football and dementia.
Yeah.
Do you think that they would, or their parents, your kids, would look on and say, do you know what, we'd give anything to have dad back or granddad as he was, and we wish he hadn't headed the ball so much in professional football?
But I also know my son would tell his sons, he would tell them that that's what your granddad wanted to do. He loved doing it. He enjoyed doing it. He wouldn't have swapped it for anything. So it's a conscious decision you make as an adult. Now, listen, there's a lot to add to this debate in terms of junior football, kids football. And we know that there's already been changes to that, to good effect and sensible effect. But to take it out of the professional game, it is a completely different sport. The game, we don't have corners, wide free kicks. We don't get Pele's header against Gordon and the save from Gordon Banks. Yep. We don't get Keith Ouchin's diving header in the FA Cup final. We don't get that anymore. It's a different sport completely. And now I get the debate, and I absolutely fully understand there will be scientific evidence that has really got to create more debate on this aid. But to eliminate it from the Premier sport, from football, I just don't think the football clubs could survive, because I think the game becomes a totally different one.
Yeah, it's a really difficult one to picture in your mind's eye. Football without heading, because it's all we've known. It's all we've ever known. Our football editor, Jason, has just tweeted. He says, how would you deal with a cross? Would you even bother crossing or sending in a corner? What about a free kick to the far post? Would heading be outlawed in the same way as handball? It's a debate to have, but it'll change football so much. Would it even be the same game? We were talking earlier, corners will have to be taken short. Crossing, you can cross a ball, but you wouldn't be allowed to head it.
Oh, so you'd have to let it. So you let it bounce.
Yeah. You wouldn't need 6'4" centre halves.
So effectively, what are we saying, that those full force impact headers, the ones that obviously the scientists are particularly concerned with and worried about? So technically, a cross could come in if it bounced and then bounced up in the air. Could we then potentially, or are we saying we're going to eliminate heading from the game completely? If we're going to eliminate heading from the game completely, it is not our sport. It is not our game. It is a totally, totally different sport. It is not football as we have lived and breathed it for well over a century.
That brings us to another element of the debate, and we'll get to your calls very shortly. We will hear from the neuropathologist as well, but Jeff Astor was a very famous case, and there's been a lot of fantastic work done by his family, his daughter Dawn as well, and she said when the rule came in last week, the guidance over 10 higher force headers only in training for professional footballers, she raised the concern about lower force headers, repetitive lower force headers, and how it's okay, you understand why the higher force header could be a problem, but if you keep on repeating lower force headers, that's going to have some traumatic impact on the brain as well, and she was concerned about that. Taking heading out of football, I don't think we like the idea of it, but actually the neuropathologists are saying that's got to happen, or football comes with a health warning. So we're going to have to start taking this idea seriously, aren't we? 08717 223344.